Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Gareth, Lily, Nick, for moderating. I'm here to show off a little project I made, making a little animated map using some open source tools, and tell you a little bit about the problems and show you where my code is if you want to replicate it yourself. So this really started, I do live in Madison, and I wanted to make a map of our bus data and really show some of the trends over time, especially the relationship there between where buses are, how full they are, and the time that they get there. I've more than once waited for a bus that either didn't come or was full when it got there and kept on going. Certainly interesting to me personally. To do this, I had to get my own data. Luckily, Madison Metro Transit has a API that they gave me a key to very easily, a little request. It is a commercial API, so they're contracting this out. So the code is potentially reusable with very little changes, really just the URL you're trying to direct it at. If you're interested yourself, it is Clever Devices is who does that for them. Unfortunately, it's not historic, no historic data there. So to make these maps myself, I had to make requests periodically and save it off locally. And to do this, I just did it with Python. I made some requests at 20-second intervals through the times that the buses run. I pulled that down to a local file, and it comes back to the JSON request, so I saved it that way, simply. And I had this script running on an old laptop that's sitting in my house still running this. We're still collecting some more data. But we're saving off JSON files every 20 seconds for every bus that is currently running in the city of Madison right now. Obviously, that's a lot of individual files. So I also have a script that runs every 20 minutes. And it will rip out open up these individual JSONs, pull out the data, and push them to a CSV for each bus route every day. That was a small enough CSV to still be workable, but also be convenient if I want to look at the data myself. And this is also running on that same laptop. So it's just combining those every 20 minutes into a daily file for each route. One thing that definitely became apparent is I had still a lot of data issues. There are times where some requests would fail, and I'd record some failures in there, so I need to do a fair bit of cleaning. The cleaning I really do as part of a Jupyter notebook that actually creates the maps, so this is more on demand. It iterates over and removes some of these errant rows that we occasionally get in our CSV data. To actually visualize this, I'm using Kepler GL. It's an open source product that's focused on interactive maps, especially with large data sets. The company is definitely more focused on the JavaScript side, which is totally fine. But I wanted to just continue to use Python for this and knock out it all in one place. They do have a Python API, and there's definitely some bugs, and they know about some of them on Windows, and the documentation is near zero, but it does exist. So that's what I'm using here. It does conveniently accept a pandas geodata frame, so you can process your data right through. It also allows you to export a single HTML file for each map that includes all the data inside of it. So it's a quick way to get out a single file, push that to the internet, and get an animated map. Speaking of documentation, there's obviously a lot of options to configure, and there's really no documentation from the Python side. They handle configuration differently than they do on the JavaScript side. So I kind of had to reverse engineer this, exporting some of these, opening up the HTML and finding my configs myself and going in and editing them eventually till I got it where I wanted it. It's really just a large dictionary in Python. But I was able to get the color to be representative of the fullness of the bus, as well as get some transparency on these points because we'll get a lot of overlapping, you'll see. Got some pop-ups on the map. And importantly, the time slider at the bottom with a histogram of the data and able to actually slow that time slider down further than they allow via the GUI. So it's a little bit better for the scale of the data I have. Yeah, other tweaks. I also, since you're getting out an HTML file, you can really do what you want with it. So right now I'm just renaming the files to at least get, they just have their branded Kepler GL name in there. So at least now they make some sense for the route names. But there's certainly a lot of opportunities to put in a header or some kind of organization as part of a bigger web page there. And since this is just a little personal project, to really get it out here, I just use GitHub Pages. It's fine. It does have a file size limit of 25 megabytes that occasionally I'd run over with the amount of data that's packaged in each one of these files. So sometimes I'd have to cut my time a little bit shorter, of a shorter time span. I've been targeting 2 weeks of data at a time, but a couple of these are a little bit smaller in order to package all that bus data in a file that I can easily host. I also then threw together a little basic homepage to allow you to click through them, and importantly, put up all of the scripts as well as the Jupyter Notebook source code that you can run this yourself, potentially, if you are interested. So yeah, the final product is a suite of animated maps of Madison's buses, as well as showing their fullness and where they are at a certain time. I have a little video of one of our routes here. So you can see we have a time slider at the bottom. I think it's to an hour window, and we're migrating through an hour. I forget which route this is. But it's interactive. We can zoom in, and you'll see the yellow here represents a fullness of empty. The blue is considered half empty, and then the red, if you see it occasionally, is considered full. If we want to look more closely, we can pause the time slider, and we can see our pop-ups that we were able to configure from our data. So again, that's showing that we're half empty, they call it on that one, as opposed to entirely empty, as well as the direction. You can see the destination there, so we're seeing both directions of this bus route. And yeah, interestingly, you can kind of see the pulse of people in and out in the morning. You can certainly see at night when, of course, no buses run. And this bus line doesn't run on the weekends, so you can see in the histogram some big gaps there where we wait around for 2 days. Oh, that's that again. Yeah, so what did I really learn from this project? One thing that came up a lot is the destinations actually change a lot. I think that has to do with how Madison manages their bus API and their bus routes. So maybe not a problem if you want to replicate this, but often the name of the destination would change, and I've seen that on the buses, but they do actually change it in their system. So occasionally this would cause problems where I'm making, now I have a new destination and have to realize that's part of this route and pull it back in. The folder structure is set up so that they make subfolders for the routes for each destination, so it shouldn't be a problem. But occasionally they would miss the route letter or number in that new destination that came through on a temporary route. So there are some gaps in data. There is a delayed field in the API. I was interested in that, but I really almost never officially saw anything delayed. Now, I can tell you they're delayed, but they don't feel the same way. So it wasn't actually that useful. That was part of my goal, but I have to do some more complicated stuff, and it's just a little project on the side. And yeah, obviously you can see the flow of commuters downtown to the university. You can see the pulses of which direction routes go when they're opposite direction. So it's a cool visualization to me overall. Yeah, like I said, problem size, you definitely have a problem size of how much data you want to get in there. Yeah, there are some limits, and these files get really big, so even requesting them, going to the web page, it's not really performant, but it is there. I also, yeah, I had some issues because I was running this on an old laptop where occasionally we'd get some gaps in data, but that's really on me. I could make that nicer, but this was free, so I did that. And then, of course, documentation for Kepler GL is a little rough, especially the Python API. They kind of just point you to their JavaScript, and it's not really the same. But that kind of is what it is. Yeah, I would say overall, I definitely have a better understanding of Madison's public transit, as well as a cool visualization to show off. And collecting all this data has given me a good-sized data set if I want to do something with this in the future, and maybe some other visualizations. If you want to see the maps yourself, that's the top QR code, and the GitHub code repository is on the bottom if you want the source code there. The maps also don't look great on mobile, so that's another a problem. But like I said, it's just a little side project I put together. So yeah, thanks for letting me talk. If you have any questions, I'll take them.
Questions for Alton? Yes, right back there.
So the API, I mean, I think that's really their way of disseminating publicly. They do have their own application to live track buses. It appears to use this API, not surprisingly. But yeah, they don't really provide historic data, kind of ever. I don't know if that's a choice, if it's just how it's worked out, but that is how it is right now. Well, so that's a good question. It's how they choose to measure fullness. So who knows what that really means? They definitely obviously keep track of who gets on. The way the system works, you don't have to like tap off. So I'm not sure how they're keeping track of who gets off. I'm sure I could ask them about that. But you know, they do have some way of doing that. I know they have some federal requirements about reporting ridership. So I'm sure I could read the documentation, but for me, this is good enough for now.
Cool. Thank you so much, Alton.